Nationalism. Nationalism is inspired by the highest ideals of human race. Satyam, the truth, Shivam, the God, and Sundaram, the beautiful. Indeed, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Vidyalankar Institute of Technology, I, Chita Tambat, proudly welcomes you all to commemorate the 125th birth anniversary of one of the most revered heroes, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He, who is one of the most celebrated Indian freedom fighters, earned the honorific title Netaji, which means respected leaders by the Indian soldiers of Azad Hind Fauj. He believed when we stand, the Azad Hind Fauj has to be like a wall of granite. When we walk, the Azad Hind Fauj has to be like a steamroller. To honor and remember his indomitable spirit and the government of India has decided to celebrate his birthday every year as Parakram Divas to inspire each and every individual, especially the youth, and to instill in them the patriotic fervor and to encourage them to act with fortitude in face of adversity, just like Netaji did. Netaji was an excellent student. He turned down the lucrative career for the devotion towards the country and for India's liberation. Through sheer endurance, he built up the army to fight for freedom, the bargain of communal harmony. He ignited the dream of fighting fire with fire and firmly quoted, "Freedom is not given, it is taken." His act of plunging into the uncertainty of life and embarking the journey that very few would venture to follow turned him into the enigma he has become. And his words, "India is calling, blood is calling blood. Get up, we have no time to lose. Take up your arms. We shall carve our way through enemy's rank, or if God's will, we shall die a martyr's death. And in our last sleep, we shall kiss the road that will bring our army to Delhi. Awaken the spirits of the soldiers and encourage them to fight for India's freedom. Let us all pledge to imbibe the virtuous attributes of this great leader and bring glory to our nation. We must not forget that the greatest crime is to compromise with injustice and wrong. We must follow the law given by him. You must give if you want to get. Today, individuals from various locations have connected with us by overcoming the barriers of physical distance to give an earnest tribute to our Netaji. Before we continue, I would like to request Dr. Amit Oksar, who is currently in US, who has spared time for a busy schedule and shared with us a video sharing few words on account of today's occasion. I would like to invite Amit Oksar now.
Welcome. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Jayanti is celebrated on 23rd January every year to remember and honor Netaji's vigor as one of the greatest freedom fighters of India. This day tributes the birth of India's most celebrated revolutionary and visionary freedom fighter who spent his entire life fighting for the independence and honor of this nation. People across India celebrate this day in unity. Subhash Chandra Bose was a man of great courage and willpower. He was a true son of his motherland, a scholar, a patriot, a leader, and an intellectual, a visionary, a socialist, and a warrior. His untiring efforts for the freedom of this nation earned him the greatest and almost respected titles of all times, Netaji. As per the guidelines from the Ministry of Education, a short program has been planned by the Students' Council members of Vidyalankar Institute of Technology to pay tributes to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I welcome each one of you for this online program and wholeheartedly thank the planners and executors of this program. A special mention and thanks to Sri Sachin Khedekar and Dr. Jayanta Chaudhary for their contribution and support for
Thank you, sir. We are now going to walk through Netaji's life and take a look back at all that he has done and achieved. It gives me immense pleasure to invite one such eminent personality, Dr. Jayant Chowdhury, who is an advocate of liberated philosophy of life, independent thoughts, rationality, and difference towards tradition. His research work is a continuous conscious effort towards social service. His deponent of Justice Mukherjee Commission of Inquiry constituted for probing into Netaji's mysterious disappearance. He has won many accolades by media, academians, journal readers for his book Into the Matter, Mystifying Disappearance of Netaji. He has received Netaji Subhash Chandra Smarak Award. He has been conferred with doctorate degree for his thesis on the topic Political and Journalistic Ideas of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He is editor of nearly half a century-year-old weekly newspaper Alipur Batra. He is general secretary of a social organization Nivedita Seva Mandir and he is founder of Netaji Chetna Manch. Due to his busy schedule and prior commitments, he has sent us a pre-recorded video. I'm sure this video is going to enlighten us about many unknown facts of the unsung hero Netaji.
Namaskar, Jai Hind, my dear students, distinguished faculty members, and friends. Today, this auspicious day of 125th birth anniversary of our Subhash Chandra Bose, our hero, Asian hero, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I would like to speak very few words about his early days, student's life. He born in Kotak, 1897 in Odisha. When he was only 5 years age, Subhash Chandra was sent to Protestant European school run by Baptist Mission in Cuttack. This is a school where many European children of the town studied with Indians. Was an English medium school. It was an English medium school. European children were there, if not racist, certainly arrogant and looked down upon natives like Subhash Chandra Bose. Though very good in studies, he spent 7 years in this school and said goodbye without any regret or hesitation. Many years later, in his unfinished autobiography, Indian Pilgrim, he wrote, referring that period, Subhash Chandra Bose wrote that he lived in two worlds. Recognizing his son's intellect, Subhash Chandra's father was determined that Bose should become a high-ranking civil servant. After leaving the Protestant European school, he went to study in Ravenshaw Collegiate School in Kotak and secured second position in his matriculation on all over Bengal. First, Pramodnath Sarkar was a student of its institution Bhawanpur, South Calcutta, and from Kotak, Subhash Chandra Bose. And he got scholarship rupees 20 rupees per month at that time. Bose joined Presidency College of Calcutta, from where he was rusticated due to giving lead student strike, which was organized against Professor Orton's atrocity towards Indian students. After that, Bose graduated with honors with flying colors from Scottish Church College. For our information, from that college, from Scottish Church College, Swami Vivekananda was also a student of that college. Securing first division with second position in philosophy, Subhash Chandra Bose, in the whole university, he also won the Pratap Chandra Mazumdar Medal and the and Philip Samuel Smith and William Smith prizes. He was placed second in his university examination. Very meritorious student was Subhash Chandra Bose. Bose perseveres as a member of Indian Defence Corps, then a newly formed military training unit at University of Calcutta, and also he was in Fort William, Fort William of Calcutta. Afterwards, Subhash Chandra Bose travelled to England, Europe for higher studies, Fitzwilliam Hall of University of Cambridge. At Cambridge, Bose had an unusual large number of lectures he attended. The subject for his civil service examination were English composition, Sanskrit, philosophy, English law, political science, modern European history, English history, economics, and geography. He was very good student in Sanskrit in his boyhood days. He secured 100 marks when he was a student of Ravinsha Collegiate School. Early in the year 1920, 8 months after he joined Cambridge University, Subhash Chandra sat his civil service examination and he got 4th position. Subhash Chandra Bose was not a patriot, but also a big-hearted person, very generous to the downtrodden people. He established an orphanage home in South Calcutta, Dakshin Kalikata Sevashram. He is now also lying there. When he was barely 15 years old, he wrote in his autobiography that Swami Vivekananda entered my life. Last but not least, I would like to read out a very inspiring speech of Subhash Chandra Bose, addressed to the fellow countrymen of iron soldiers. It is not in Subhash Chandra Bose's collected works. It is in a special volume of Parliament, New Delhi. I've also included it in my appendix of my book. The speech is Price of Liberty. Fellow countrymen, in 22nd September 1942. I would like to read out all the speech. Price of Liberty. Our motherland is seeking liberty. She can no more live without liberty, but liberty demands sacrifice at its altar. Liberty demands the unstinted sacrifice of your strength, your wealth, all that you value, all that you possess. Like the revolutionaries of the past, you must sacrifice your race, your comfort, your pleasure, your cash, your property. You have given your sons as soldiers for the battlefields, but the goddesses of liberty is not yet at pleased. I shall tell you the secret of pleasing her. Today, she demands not merely fighters and soldiers of the foes. Today, she demands rebels, both men and women, who will be prepared to join suicide squads, for whom death is certainty. Rebels who will be ready to drown the enemy in streams of blood that shall flow from their own body. तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुमको आजादी दूंगा. You give me blood, I shall get you freedom. This is the demands of liberty. Listen to me. I do not want your emotional approval. I want rebels to step forward and sign this suicide squad oath. This document, which is an appointment with death on their altar of the goddesses of liberty. But you cannot sign an appointment with death in ordinary ink. You shall have to write with your own blood. Step up, those who dare. I am here to witness your blood spill for the liberty of our motherland. What inspiring speech has given Subhash Chandra Bose. Today, we salute him on behalf of patriotic people. I would like to congratulate all of you. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for sparing time from your busy schedule and sharing your knowledge with all of us and making us feel blessed to be part of this era. Moving on, now we have one of the most finest and versatile actors of the Indian film industry. He has won the hearts of millions of people through his amazing work and iconic roles, which will be cherished till eternity. It gives me immense pleasure to share with you all that Sri Sachin Khedekar sir, who besides being an excellent actor is an outstanding director, happily welcomed us to have an interview segment at his home. Before we continue with it, have a look at few of the scenes from the movie Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, The Forgotten Hero, where Sachin sir have portrayed the role of Netaji, the unparalleled hero.
What do you think would happen if the British were suddenly to leave India?
Naturally, a national government would be formed.
With you as the leader.
No. The leader will be elected democratically by the people of India.
But how will you govern? Aren't there too many religious differences? Won't there be a chaos?
Many religions, yes. Chaos? No. We have lived with many religions for centuries, well before the British colonized us. But that's besides the point. What I want immediately is recognition of India as a free nation by the Third Reich.
How will the unarmed masses of India defeat the army of the powerful British Empire?
But the might of this empire rests on their control of India. And how do they control India? They hold India through force of arms with an army of Indians. After all, there are only 70,000 British soldiers in India. The rest are Indians. We only need to raise an army of 50,000 men to liberate India.
But where will these men come from?
From the Indian prisoners of war here in Germany and in Italy, as I have stated in my memorandum. Once they learn that the Axis powers have recognized our government in exile, they will definitely fight for their motherland.
मैं ईश्वर अल्लाह वाहेगुरु की कसम खाके ये अहद उठाता हूँ कि आज से मैं नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस की सरपरस्ती में आजाद हिंद फौज के परचम तले अपने मुल्क हिंदुस्तान को आजाद कराने के लिए ही लड़ूंगा इस कसम की रक्षा के लिए मैं अपनी जान भी कुर्बान करने को तैयार रहूंगा। जय हिंद।
और मैं इस आजाद हिंद फौज का सेना नायक हिंदुस्तान को आजाद करने में खुद अपने सिपाहियों की अगुवाई करूंगा। जय हिंद। पूर्व एशिया में जंग आजादी के नुमाइंदों, आजाद हिंद फौज के सिपाहियों, बहनों और भाइयों, अब वो वक्त आ चुका है जब आजादी चाहने वाले हर हिंदुस्तानी को अपनी मातृभूमि के लिए बलिदान देने आगे आना होगा। ये युद्ध का समय है और ऐसे वक्त में जरूरत होती है अनुशासन की, अकीदे की और अपने आप में अटूट विश्वास की। और इसीलिए आज पूर्व एशिया में बसे भारतीयों से मैं अपील करता हूं कि हम ये अहद उठा लें कि हम एकजुट होकर, एक मत होकर, एक हिमालय की तरह दुश्मन के सामने खड़े होंगे। मेरे साथियों, मेरे सिपाहियों, हिंदुस्तान की स्वतंत्रता के सिपाहियों, आज का दिन मेरे जीवन का सबसे गर्व भरा दिन है, क्योंकि आज मैं सारी दुनिया से फख्र के साथ कह सकता हूं कि भारत को आजादी दिलाने वाली सेना का मेरा सपना अब साकार हो चुका है। आजाद हिंद फौज के हर सैनिक को अपने मोटो की इन 3 कसौटियों पर खरा उतरना पड़ेगा। इत्तफाक यानी एकता, एतमाद यानी विश्वास और कुर्बानी यानी बलिदान। साथियों, सिंगापुर, मलाया, बर्मा और पूर्व एशिया में बसे 30 लाख हिंदुस्तानियों से मुझे यह कहना है कि भारत की आजादी की जंग आपकी पूरी शिरकत के बिना कभी पूरी नहीं हो सकती। इसीलिए आपको भी बड़ी तादाद में आजाद हिंद फौज में भर्ती होना होगा। मैं ये भी कहना चाहता हूं कि इस पावन काम में औरतें पीछे न छूट जाएं और मौत को ललकारने वाला एक ऐसा मृत्युंजय दस्ता बनाएं जो अंग्रेजों के खिलाफ वैसे ही तलवार उठा ले जैसे सन 1857 में झांसी की रानी ने उठाई थी। बहादुरों, बिना कीमत चुकाए इस दुनिया में कुछ हासिल नहीं होता और आजादी की कीमत है शहादत। आज मैं आप सबको कॉल देता हूं, तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा। जय हिंद, जय हिंद, जय हिंद, जय हिंद, जय हिंद।
लाल किले पर जब पहली बार तिरंगा लहराया, नेताजी मौजूद नहीं थे, पर अगर वो ना होते और उनकी आजाद हिंद फौज, तो हिंद ना जाने कब आजाद होता।
While portraying the life of a person, one needs to live that character. So, sir, to depict the life of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, which material? So, sir, while portraying the life of a person, one needs to live that character. So, sir, to depict the life of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, which materials did you refer to know the intricacies of the role?
This script was quite extensive. म्हणजे, the films we make is about 60, 70 scenes in a film for a 2-hour, 2.5-hour film. In this case, it was more than 180 scenes. It was a long, extensive script. And when I first met Mr. Benegal, he said there are about 38 to 40 books which are referred to make this text. And the ideal preparation of the role would be you go through all of them for a simple reason that let's say if we are jumping from scene number 5 to scene number 6, and if there are three months gone in that in between those scenes, then you need to know what happened in those 3 months too. So it was the preparation starts from reading material. And it was essential because आपल्याकडे to prepare a role externally you can do makeup, you can do text, you can do tuitions, you can do rehearsals, but internally to prepare a character, or it's like in Mr. Bennigal's words, it was till you make it your second culture, we will not start shooting. आणि आपल्याकडे रिफरिंग टू ऑल दीज बुक्स वॉज अ बिग थिंग, बिकॉज आपल्याकडे समजा सगळ्यात पॉप्युलर पुस्तक फ्रीडम ॲट मिडनाईट आहे. त्याच्यामध्ये नेताजींचा रेफरन्स इज ओनली रेबल अक्रॉस एशिया एवढाच आहे. तर दॅट वॉज समथिंग which makes all the more reason to know the text completely before you approach the role.
Oh, right, sir. So it is indeed an extensive study which goes into the process. So, sir, when this role was offered to you for the first time, what were your feelings? How did you feel?
I was excited. Of course, I was acting, and I still remember we were. There were a lot of auditions happening, and I knew about the auditions. And Rajan Kothari, the DOP of the film, actually said, "Can you shave off your mustache and try auditioning for the part?" I said, "Yeah, I would be excited." And then he was the one who actually saw Netaji's face in mine. So I thought, yeah, I should give it a shot. This is a dear friend of mine, Jagdish Mali, and he said, "Yeah, I can click a picture of yours." आणि माझ्याकडे महानायक विश्वास पाटलांच्या महानायकची कॉपी होती. So I showed him ki I should look like this. So he said, "Yeah, let's go to." So we went to a dresswala, Jem's dresswala, and took those breechers, pants, and the uniform, and we clicked our pictures. Netajincha get-up madhe at Asiatic Library, Churchgate, and some old buildings, and they were quite authentic. The pictures reached Mr. Bennigal's office, and he called me immediately. And the first question he asked was, "What is your height?" So he said, "I'm 5'11". And he said, "Yeah, come and see me." So it was an exciting point. By then, I was acting for about 15, 16 years, and probably stuck in the same roles, or I needed something in my career which would establish me as the actor in capital letters. And that was something which was in the offing. And I was excited because, all that process the actor goes through, like you keep hearing in the West, you be with the role, you actually do one film in a year, you should have prosthetic and all that get up, and you should learn a newer language every film. All these और ये मेरी सारी इच्छाएं एक फिल्म में पूरी हो गई. Because I was trusted with this role, I worked hard. I had shaved my head and all kinds of things, but I did look the part, and that was half the battle won.
Right, sir. Sir, you have done movies in various languages, and this is one of your iconic roles.
Thank you.
Sir, during shooting, were there any instances where you felt the presence of Netaji?
Yes, so many times actually, but more so we were shooting in Burma, in Mandalay, and Netaji was in Mandalay jail for a while, and we shot in the same jail cell, and of course there is a Netaji statue now in that place, but we shot in the adjacent cell. And that was the time I actually felt, he was here, and you felt the vibe.
Yes, sir. So, sir, during shooting, did you face any difficulties, considering that this movie was based on the untold story of one of the most revered heroes of the Indian freedom struggle?
Yes, it is. No, what was the beginning of the question?
Did you face any difficulties during shooting, considering?
Well, during shooting, when you're dealing with a character which is historical, or there are people alive who've seen him, it becomes a larger responsibility that you don't want to make mistakes, you don't want to falter. Of course, there is a director, there is a writer, there is a text available, there are references available, so you kind of secure yourself from that, but you still feel a great responsibility towards authenticity. So that used to become a task every day. Every day I used to feel, it's like Mr. Benegal saying, if you lie to the camera, I would know. So it becomes, for an actor, it becomes extremely challenging that you remain as true as you can to the text written.
Right, sir. So, sir, there was this scene where you're addressing the Azad Hind Fauj. So, at that moment, that scene was so passionate. So, how did you feel about depicting that scene?
Yes, तुम मुझे खून दो मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा is a line which is kind of etched into any student's mind who's gone to school and studied history. But beyond that, and his disappearance in 1945, beyond these two facts, students really don't know much. But then this scene becomes the iconic scene of the film, and it is the formation of INA and his first speech. So it became it became that I have to put in my soul into it to just make that happen. And I still remember we shot it in an army camp in Wakola, here in Bombay, with all those soldiers, and we had all the NCC cadets playing soldiers. And somehow I have always felt that when you play historical characters, there's something about history which actually gets into you automatically.
Right.
I had that feeling that day.
Right, I get
Yeah.
it. Sir, out of so many teachings of Netaji, which is one teaching which you have applied in your life in any particular situation?
I'm always a proud Indian, and I love my country. In case of Netaji, the way he used to say "Madre Vatan ke liye," for my motherland, is something which is so positive, and which is so full of energy, that mere madre vatan ke liye, for my proud country.
Yeah.
Now that feeling of nationalism or national character came through beautifully in the film because of Netaji's character. And Netaji belonged to a extremely rich and affluent family. Half of his life was in Europe. He would have done wonders with his life, but for his motherland, he struggled so much. Now you imagine the sacrifice of a man, because unless you love your motherland so much, that kind of sacrifice is not possible. So similarly, I was always a proud Indian. I had a national character, but I kind of feel more for my country after I did the role.
Right, sir. Also, sir, there is this scene in the movie where you're giving a speech to the soldiers, and it ignites the spark in the audience as well while just watching the movie. So, sir, what went through your mind for preparation of this particular role? Like,
For a leader, I'll explain it to you technically. The text would always be with a lot of fervor and with a lot of passion and all of that, and you have to incite the audience there. Now, for an actor, it becomes an exercise of watching all these leaders, or like Mr. Benegal used to say, a leader who is, if from here, if he has to look somewhere else, he would never go down and look again. He would always from here look here, and look here, and be in that. So that asato the erect spine, and the chin would always be slightly up and look at the leaders. Now, all these small things actually get you into leadership qualities. And then my काय म्हणतात त्याला, natak and नाटकाची तालीम was something which kind of helped me. My theater background was the most essential to kind of see me through this role. And yes, the lines written were powerful and they were as authentic as he said that time.
Right, sir. So you have so many followers. All your roles are awesome. So, sir, is there any particular incident associated with this movie which you cherish even today, or with your fans?
Well, so many. The most emotional memory of that is, when the film was complete, over three years we were working on the film, and then we had a first show in Priya Cinema, Delhi. And the Axis forces, or Azad Hind Fauj, was not inducted into the Indian Army after the independence, and their pensions also started in 1971. Might be wrong with the date, but around that time. And everybody used to love Netaji, his leadership. Azad Hind Fauj, there's so many people still alive when the film released. And when I reached the cinema and then the show happened, and at the end of the show, these people actually came to me and touched me like this, if I'm still real or if he's still real. I mean, I cannot tell you how overwhelming that experience can be.
I cannot just imagine that
Yeah.
situation. It must be great. Sir, what do you think? How can students implement Netaji's teaching in the current world of modern technology?
Well, the essentially, like I mentioned, in Netaji Bhavan, Kolkata, Azad Hind Fauj के सैनिकों के सैलरी स्लिप्स अभी भी preserved हैं. I mean, there's so many. Or in the film, there is an iconic scene where I speak to the Führer, Hitler and Netaji's scene, and it is a 257-page account. I mean, in the film, we have about 2.5 minute or the 3 minute scene. Or there is so much of material available. His writings, his so many things, and they have preserved it beautifully. I have always felt that the modern technology should help us preserve our history more. People always think about, when they think about computer science engineer, they're always looking ahead, how the living conditions would improve so that you actually jump steps and go ahead. I really think in this case, the modern technology can help preserve our history more and more and make it available as easy as it can, because that is something which will give them the impetus to behave in our country, for which a lot of freedom fighters have struggled a lot, have given their life to it. And I really think that that it would help the youngsters or the generation to love our country more.
Definitely, sir. So, sir, any message for the youth of the nation on account of 125th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose?
Government has declared the Netaji Janma Divas, 23rd of January, as the Parakram Divas. I really think the Parakram for the youngsters would be to follow rules, follow the laws. I mean, that's the least they can do. And the trait in the youngsters which I see is always comparing India with first world countries. अरे हमारे अमेरिका में तो ऐसा होता है, यहाँ ऐसा होता है. I really think that people should stop doing this, because I really feel that we are the most progressive and how do you put it? हमारे देश में अभी भी ग्रोथ की गुंजाइश इतनी है कि we should all contribute to the economic and to the financial strength of our country, and we should contribute more to our country than speak about others.
Right, sir. I'm sure, sir, all the audience who's watching this video will get inspired by this and will definitely try to contribute. Thank you so much, sir. It was a great pleasure talking to you, and it was our fortunate enough to have you. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you. The pleasure was entirely mine. Thank you.
Once again, I would like to extend my special thanks to Sri Sachin sir for this memorable conversation. I'm sure we all will definitely follow the rules and continue the legacy left behind by our freedom fighters and great leaders. Moving on, various artists and orators have come together to make this tribute a memorable one. For that, I would now like to hand over to my co host, Tanvi Deswal. Over to you, Tanvi.
Thank you, Ishita. Hearing all the wisdomous word that Sir has been sharing, a very apt quote and a practice by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose comes to my mind. It is blood alone that can pay the price of freedom. Give me blood and I'll give you freedom. तुम मुझे खून दो और मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा. This indeed is a powerful quote. Good evening, everyone. I am Tanvi Jaiswal, your co-host for the evening. As you all know, we VITians are united here to celebrate 125th birth anniversary of the greatest legendary freedom fighter, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Netaji believed that the non-violence approach would not help India to get independence, and so he advocated to fight Britishers upfront in battleground. According to him, one individual may die for an idea, but after his death, that idea will incarnate itself in thousand lives. Now, I would like to share a shairi written by one of our talented college student, Amarnath, paying tribute to Netaji's. It goes like, जोशीले भाषाओं से नौजवानों में जोश भर दे ऐसा उनका दरारा था तुम मुझे खून दो और मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा बस यही उनका नारा था तुम मुझे खून दो और मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा बस यही उनका नारा था जीवन सारा दे दिया आजादी के लिए वो भारत माँ के लाड दुलारे थे वो कोई और नहीं इस भारत के मिट्टी के लाल हम नेताजी हमारे थे तो आइए उनके जन्म दिवस के इस अवसर पर भारत के इस सपूत को याद करें नेताजी की याद में हम उनके द्वारा जीवन के पहलुओं पर कहे गए विचारों और भावनाओं को आपके सामने प्रकाशित कर रहे हैं वतन पर मिटने वाले ने भी क्या खूब किस्मत पाई है हमें देकर आजादी वो जन्नत पाई है लिपट कर तिरंगे में वो शहादत भी आई है आजादी की इस देश ने बहुत भारी कीमत चुकाई है उन्हीं की दास्ता एक कविता के जरिए सुनाने आ रहे हैं चैतन्य तुलस्कर तो चलिए स्वागत करते हैं चैतन्य का
है समय नदी की बाढ़ की जिसमें सब बह जाया करते हैं है समय नदी तूफान प्रबल पर्वत झुक जाया करते हैं अक्सर दुनिया में लोग समय में टक्कर खाया करते हैं लेकिन कुछ ऐसे होते हैं जो इतिहास बनाया करते हैं यह उसी वीर इतिहास पुरुष की अनुपम अमर कहानी है जो रक्त गणों से लिखी गई जिसकी जय हिंद निशानी नेता सुभाष प्यारा सुभाष भारत भू का उजियारा था जो पैदा होते ही गणिकों ने जिसका भविष्य लिख डाला वह चक्रवर्ती होगा या त्यागी होगा सन्यासी जिसके गौरव को याद रखोगे युग युग तक भारतवासी सो वही वीर नौकरशाही ने पकड़ जेल में डाला था पर क्रुद्ध कौहरी कभी नहीं फांदे में टिकने वाला था बांधे जाते हैं इंसान तूफान न बांधे जाते हैं काया जरूर बांधे जाते हैं इरादे न बांधे जाते हैं वह द्रुत प्रतिज्ञा सेनानी था मौका देखकर निकल गया वह पारा था अंग्रेजों की मुट्ठी में से निकल गया जिस तरह दुर्योधन से बचकर यदुनंदन आए थे जिस तरह शिवाजी ने मुगलों के पहरेदार चकाए थे बस उसी तरह तोड़ पिंजरा तोते सा बेदाग गया जनवरी सन 41 मच गया शोर वह भाग गया वह कहाँ गए, वह कहाँ रहे, यह धूमिल अभी कहानी है, पर हमने तो उनकी नई कथा, उनकी आजाद जानी। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Chaitanya, for sharing such a passionate tribute through your poem. It was truly impactful. As rightly said by Netaji, life loses half of its interest if there is no struggle, if there are no risks to be taken. Moving on, I would like to invite Priyanka Kulkarni, who will enlighten us about the various endeavors, adventures, ups and downs of Netaji's life.
कदम कदम बढ़ाया खुशी को लुटाए जा ये जिंदगी है कौम की तू कौम पे लुटाए जा. This song reminds us of the most integral phase of Indian freedom struggle. The person who lightened up the spark of patriotism in every single Indian. One who was renowned for his bravery, courage, and progressive thinking. Our beloved Netaji, Shri Subhash Chandra Bose. Jai Hind. To remind every one of us about this celebrated visionary and revolutionary, we are here with you today. Let's trail over the roads of his life story on the occasion of Netaji's 125th birth anniversary. Netaji Bose was a man of great courage and willpower. His untiring efforts towards the freedom of our nation earned him the most respected titles of all times, that is Netaji. Born to advocate Janakinath Bose and Prabhavati Devi, his entire life was filled with instances of nationalist revolution. After studying at University of Cambridge, he headed to London to appear for Indian Civil Services exam. Securing fourth rank in the same, he joined his duty. But soon he did lose his job because he couldn't side with the Britishers and also wanted to participate in Indian nationalist movement. Netaji was highly influenced by the ideas of Swami Vivekananda. He often described him as the maker of modern India and believed in his practical approaches towards solving humanitarian crises in the modern society. He was overwhelmed with the success of socialism in solving the problems of poverty, illiteracy, and backwardness in the Soviet. But he equally denounced the dogmatic approach of treating man as a machine. So, according to him, it was service above self, nation above anything else, but respecting humans above all. You all would be surprised to know that the title of Rashtrapita was given to Gandhiji by Netaji only. Though both of them had different views over the way to achieve Swaraj, but in the end, both of them wanted to achieve the same. Azad Hind Fauj was revived by him in Singapore again and it received support from Germany and Japan. You all know that the song Kadam Kadam Badhaye Ja was the marching song of this fiery battalion. His idea about using aggression against the dominators was very clear. When the sound of Tum Mujhe Khoon Do, Main Tumhe Azadi Dunga echoed in Rangoon. He even formed Azad Hind government, a government in exile which had already started its own bank, currency, stamps, and civil code. Many scholars even today believe that this government formation had given India's independence struggle a greater legitimacy. The first women regiment, the idea of women in army, was effectively implemented by Netaji by forming Rani of Jhansi Regiment. It was led by Captain Lakshmi Sehgal, who was a lieutenant in Indian National Army during the World War II. Now you all would believe what I said in the beginning, that Netaji was a man of progressive ideals. This year, the government of India has decided to celebrate his birth anniversary as Parakram Divas. That is the day to celebrate courage and valor. There are two very beautiful lines in this song, "Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo," which I am getting reminded of, which say, "Jab ant samay aaya to keh gaye ki ab marte hai. खुश रहना देश के प्यारो, अब हम सफर करते हैं." Let's value these sacrifices today. The life lost which made us stand safely where we are today. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Thank you, Priyanka, for your eminent speech. सुना है संगीत है तो शब्द भी मधुर बन जाते हैं, उनके करीब ना होते हुए भी उनकी याद दिला जाते हैं, और आजकल तो आप सभी का नाता है इनसे। इन्हीं संगीत और शब्दों को जोड़कर आ रहे हैं अनिर्बन। देखते हैं कि आप इनके गीत में कितना खो जाते हैं। Please welcome Anirban, who is presenting a song in tribute in the memory of Netaji.
ধন্য পুষ্পে ভরা আমাদের বসুন্ধরা, তাহার মাঝে আছে দেশে সকল দেশের সেরা, স্বপ্ন দিয়ে তৈরি সেজে স্মৃতি দিয়ে ঘেরা। এমন দেশটি কোথাও খুঁজে পাবে না কো তুমি, সকল দেশের রানী সেজে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি। ভাইয়ের মায়ের এত স্নেহ কোথায় গেলে পাবে কেহ, ও মা তোমার চরণ দুটি বক্ষে আমার ধরি, আমার এই দেশেতে জন্ম যেন এই দেশেতে মরি। এমন দেশটি কোথাও খুঁজে পাবে না কো তুমি, সকল দেশের রানী সেজে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি।
That was such a melodious performance. Well, riddle me this. What is the purpose of an art? Well, art speaks where words are unable to explain. So, next we have a captivating portrait of Netaji done by our own Bhupesh sir.
वंदे मातरम 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 सुजलां सुफलां मलयज शीतलं शस्यश्यामलां मातरं वन्दे, सुजलां सुफलां मलयज शीतलं शस्यश्यामलां मातरं वन्दे। वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं शुभ्रजोत्स्ना पुलकितयामिनीं कुसुम
ಕುಸುಮಿತ ಧ್ರುಮದಲ ಶೋಭಿನಿ
ಶುಭ್ರಜ್ಯೋತ್ಸ್ನಾ ಪುಲಕಿತಯಮಿನಿ ಕುಸುಮಿತ ಧ್ರುಮದಲ ಶೋಭಿನಿ
ಸುಹಾಸಿನೀಂ ಸುಮಧುರ ಭಾಷಿಣೀಂ ಸುಖದಾಂ ವರದಾಂ
वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं
सप्तकोटि कंठ कल कल निनाद करले सप्तकोटि भुजैदित कर करवाले सप्तकोटि कंठ कल कल निनाद करले सप्तकोटि भुजैदित कर करवाले लगे मैं तो बोले बहुबलधारिणी नमामि तारिणी रिपुदलवारिणी
मातरं वन्दे वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं
ज्योत्स्ना पुलकितयामिनी कुसुमित ध्रुमदल शोभिनी
शुभ्रज्योत्स्ना पुलकितयमिनी कुसुमित ध्रुमदल शोभिनी
सुहासिनीं सुमधुर भाषिणीं सुखदां वरदां
वन्दे मातरं 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 वन्दे मातरं
सप्तकोटि कंठ कल कल निनाद करले सप्तकोटि भुजैदित कर करवाले सप्तकोटि कंठ कल कल निनाद करले सप्तकोटि भुजैदित कर करवाले लगे मैं तो बोले बहुबलधारिणी नमामि तारिणी रिपुदलवारिणी
मातरं वन्दे वन्दे मातरं 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 वन्दे मातरं
That was truly mesmerizing. We could feel the flow of emotion by watching it. Thank you, sir. Next, we have a documentary edited by Curzon Kumana, showcasing the life of visionary leader who was an ardent patriot and a freedom fighter, who still inspire us and will continue to do so till eternity. The original resources are mentioned in the documentary. For more information, you can visit them.
For many Indians, Subhash Chandra Bose has a unique place in history. He was the only nationalist leader who confronted the British Empire on the battlefield. In 1919, he enrolled at Cambridge University in England to prepare for entry into the Indian Civil Service, the ICS. After only 8 months of study, Subhash passed the extremely difficult Indian Civil Service exam. To his surprise, he was the 4th best in his year.
Does he want to be a servant of the British laws? After he thinks about it for a while, he says no.
It fully struck him how British rule was ultimately racist, and how Indians were discriminated against by their European masters. He soon organized protests and strikes against British rule. His declared goal was to kick the British out of India. There were even rumors that he had links with Bengali terrorists. It didn't take long until he was arrested. Time and again over the next 10 years, Bose was locked up for his anti-British activities. In prison, his health declined. To avoid turning him into a martyr, he was released to the care of his family. The precondition was that he left India for a lengthy period of time. In 1933, he boarded a ship to Europe. His destination was, as he couldn't be in India, he would continue his struggle on the international stage.
He wants Europeans, non-British, to support the efforts of India to obtain independence from the British Empire.
Back in 1933, Anita's father was heading to Britain. He'd come to meet the Nazis, who'd recently taken over power. Bose held meetings with Nazi officials. He wanted Germany's political support for Indian independence and asked for a meeting with the Führer himself. But Hitler wasn't interested. Even though Subhash believed that the use of violence against the British was legitimate, Gandhi brought him into the mainstream of the Indian nationalist movement. He even ensured that Bose was elected president of the Indian National Congress Party. Subhash publicly advocated the use of violence against the British.
India is going to be free. Our struggle is no doubt a non-violent struggle. But even a non-violent struggle demands an army, an organization, and a machinery.
Gandhi was shocked, and Bose was forced to resign. He rallied the radical Indian left around him and set up a new political party, the Forward Bloc. Britain's ultra-conservative new Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, advocated a tough hand in India, while the war in Europe was threatening the survival of Britain as an independent nation. Bose and his followers were arrested. The Forward Bloc movement came to a halt.
Bose had undertaken a hunger strike in prison, and the British did not want him to die on their hands, and so had allowed him to go home with the intention of rearresting him as soon as he regained his health.
But Bose managed to escape. In disguise, he headed north. He then walked across the border into Afghanistan. Bose boarded a train and headed north. His first stop was Moscow. Subhash only received a transit visa and was forced to continue his journey. His final destination was Germany, which had a non-aggression treaty with the Soviet Union. The Nazis were at the height of their power, the masters of Western and Central Europe, but the German attack on the Soviet Union offered new opportunities. Hitler had ordered that once Russia had fallen, the Wehrmacht would continue its advance all the way to India. Suddenly, Bose was of interest to the Germans. They agreed to support him with money. Bose assumed the title of Netaji, which means leader. He received an office and an organization, the Free India Center, with a staff of more than 30 people. Bose wanted to reach the 2 million Indian volunteers of the British Indian Army. These men were the bedrock of the British Raj.
He believed that Britain's Indian Army was the ultimate instrument of colonial control, not just in India, but in the British Empire worldwide. And therefore, he set out to undermine the loyalty of Indian soldiers to the King Emperor and replace it with a new allegiance to the Indian nation.
The Netaji proposed that the Indian POWs should join a special Indian legion within the Wehrmacht, loyal to himself and to Adolf Hitler. The Wehrmacht's war against Russia wasn't going well. The chances of reaching India were slim. Bose was looking for new allies. The Japanese were much closer to India than the Germans. After its surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Japan had entered the war on Germany's side. Back in Berlin, Bose visited the Japanese embassy to offer his services. He'd set up an Indian Legion in Germany and wanted to do the same in Southeast Asia, together with the Japanese. It was agreed that he would make his way to Japan as soon as possible. Bose used the time to hold an international conference on India. It introduced a piece of music that would later become India's national anthem.
Den Kampf bis zum Siege weiterzuführen, zu bekräftigen. In diesem Kampf, der für Indien ein Kampf Sein oder Nichtsein ist, kann es nur einen Ausgang geben, unseren gemeinsamen Sieg.
He boarded the German submarine U-180. He was to be transferred to a Japanese submarine that would take the Netaji all the way to Japan. The Japanese submarine managed to carry Bose all the way to Southeast Asia. From there, he boarded a flight to Tokyo.
We are now living in a period.
Addressing the Japanese government, Bose was elated.
I am overjoyed to see that you have already realized that the responsibility of winning freedom does not rest merely on the shoulders of our countrymen at home. It is but natural that they should bear the brunt of the burden, and they have been doing so already. But at the same time, every Indian, no matter where he may be living at the present time, has a duty towards his country, and he must contribute his due share towards the final victory.
Bose now proceeded to Singapore. He received a hero's welcome by thousands of Indian volunteers, members of the Indian National Army under Japanese command. They were ready to fight the British, but had lacked a charismatic Indian leader.
One of the unique features of the Indian National Army was that there was a women's regiment. They were trained to fight, they were given small arms training, and many of them were teenage girls recruited from the Indian population in Southeast Asia.
At the beginning of 1944, the Indian National Army joined the Japanese advance towards India. In March 1944, Japanese and INA forces went on the offensive. The Japanese expected an easy victory, just like in 1942. But this time, the British were ahead of the game.
I asked Netaji that as we and our allies appear to have lost the war, and there were little hope of our taking to offensive again, what exactly was left for us to fight, or what were we fighting for? Without the least sign of annoyance, back came the reply: to pay the price of India's liberty. His reply was in line with a previous statement: when the blood of freedom-loving Indians begins to flow, India will attain her freedom. Thus, our national aim was the attainment of Indian freedom, and our military objective was to pay the price of India's liberty.
12 months before the trials, on the 18th of August 1945, 3 days after Japan's surrender to the Allies, Bose was still full of confidence about his political future. He decided to fly to Manchuria and surrender to the forces of the Soviet Union and continue his struggle for Indian independence. But the plane was overloaded. After a stopover in Japanese-occupied Formosa, it developed engine trouble. According to witnesses, the plane crashed. Bose died as a result of severe burns. He was cremated and his remains were sent to a Buddhist temple in Japan.
And the man behind it all, that valiant fighter for freedom, that man who gave to his soldiers of the Azad Hind Fauj a common language and a common purpose, that man who banished casteism and provincialism from the INA, that man who hungered for a free India and declared that the roads to Delhi are many and Delhi still remains our goal. That man, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, lives in the hearts of his people like an eternal flame that burns bright.
Whether we survive or not, whether we individually live to see India free or not, we are confident that India shall be free.
The extensive work of Netaji's life was indeed summarized in the best possible way. Before we conclude, I would like to recite few lines. भारत के इस वीर पुरुष की बस इतनी अमर कहानी है, हिंदी की आन की खातिर मिट्टी में मिली उसकी जवानी है. Netaji's ideology and thoughts are the source of inspiration, even in the modern times. I am sure we all depart from here inspired and with a sense of greater appreciation of the freedom we hold so dear. Thank you so much for being a part of this heartfelt tribute from the Student Council of VIT to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Handing over to Soumya Singh for presenting the vote of thanks. This was your co-host for the evening, Tanvi Jaiswal, now signing off. Over to you, Soumya.
Thank you, Ishita and Tanvi, for taking us through this creative tribute to Netaji's life and his accomplishments. Members of the VIT Student Council left no stone unturned in paying their tribute to Netaji. On their behalf, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the higher authorities and our conveners who helped us immensely in executing our vision. I would also like to express my gratitude towards Mr. Jayanta Chaudhary for sparing some moment from his schedule to impart his wisdom and thoughts about Netaji. In spite of his many engagements and other commitments, Khedekar sir was kind enough to answer a few questions about the well-known movie Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, in which he played the protagonist. I thank you on behalf of VIT for enlightening us with your kind words. A very big thank you to the students and faculty members of VIT who displayed their artwork and creativity and shared their talents with us today. They all were extremely cooperative throughout. Special thanks to our audience who witnessed this event and contributed towards making this event a huge success. Have a great evening, all of you. Jai Hind.